Hi guys, it's me Terry of the Yarnjoy podcast. Welcome back to the second part of the educational baby ball tutorial. This is a pattern by Patricia Heller, and thank you Patricia for allowing me to make a tutorial on your awesome pattern. Okay, so in part one of the tutorial series, I showed you how to make these 5-sided figures, and I said that you needed to make 12 of them. So I've got all 12 of mine made. So I picked out one of them to use. So let's go ahead and get started and make our first panel, our first panel, which will be, I'm just going in the order of the pattern, and it's going to be the bunny. So for this tutorial, you're going to need white if you want to make your bunny white. I'm using the same white that I used to put the border on my panels. So white, some black for the eyes, to stitch on the eyes. I'm using this pink right here for the nose and mouth to stitch on. A little bit of stuffing, fiber fill, okay? And I am using all DK weight yarn for my pieces with a 3mm crochet hook. You're going to need a needle, a tapestry needle, to sew your pieces onto your panel, and you can use a stitch marker to keep track of your rounds because you are not joining. It's going to be in a spiral, the rounds are, okay? And I think that is all. So let's get started then. Okay, so putting the panel aside for the moment, I'm going to get my white yarn, pull out a length here, and it says to use a magic circle. You could also chain 2 and then work in the first chain, work in the second chain from the hook. But if you know how to do a magic circle, then let's go ahead and do that, okay? So into the magic circle, I'm going to put 6 single crochets, okay? So I'm going to chain 1 just to get my hook up a little bit, up a little bit higher level, and I'm going to put 6 single crochets into that magic ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, okay? And now I'm going to pull the adjustable, the tail, the starting tail, to close up my circle, okay? Now going on to round 2, it says 2 single crochets in the next 2 stitches, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and we're going to do that sequence 2 times, which will give us 10 stitches around. So starting off, there's no joining. We're just going to go right into the next stitch, which is the first stitch of those 6 that we created, and we're going to do 2 single crochets into that stitch, 1 and 2 in the same stitch, okay? Okay, and then in the next stitch we're going to do 2 single crochets also, so 1 and 2. Okay, now in the next stitch we're going to do 1 single crochet, okay, and now we're going to repeat that. So 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch. And that will give you 10 single crochets around now, okay? In round 3, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 2 single crochets, 1 in the next 2 stitches, okay? And we're going to do that for 3 repetitions, it says. Okay, so going on, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the first stitch of the round, so 2 single crochets, okay? If we want to go ahead and mark that round, mark it in the first stitch of that round, okay? That'll show you where the beginning is. So we did 2 single crochets in that, okay? And then in that first stitch, and then it says then it just says 2 single crochets, which means 1 single crochet in the next stitch and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that 2 more times. So 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches, so that's 1 and 2. Okay, and then we're going to do it again, 2 single crochets in the same stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, we've got 1 stitch left there on the round, and it says to do 2 single crochets into that stitch, so 1 and 2. Okay, so now at the end of round 3 our stitch count should be 14. Okay, so going on to round 4, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then we're going to do 3 singles. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to take my marker out. I'm going to put 1 single crochet in that stitch, the next stitch, which is the first stitch of the round, and then I'm going to put my marker back in there. And then we need to do 1 more in that same stitch, that first stitch. Okay, so there's 2 in that stitch, and then we're going to do 3 singles, which means 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, so we're going to repeat that sequence. So 2 single crochets, 1 and 2 in the same stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Get some more yarn here, and 1 single crochet in the next stitch. So we have 3 singles. Okay, then we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then we're going to do 3 single crochets, so 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 in each one, and 1 single crochet. Okay, and then we're going to have 2 stitches left before we get to our marker again, so we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in the last one. Okay, now we should have a stitch count of 18. Okay, going on to round 5, we're going to take our marker out so we can replace it after we make the first stitch. So going on to round 5, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then we're going to do 4 singles. Okay, so let's do the first single crochet in the first stitch, and then go ahead and put our marker in there. But then we need to do 1 more single crochet in that same stitch. Okay, and now we're going to do 4 singles. So 1, 1, 1, and 1. Okay, these are all single crochets. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that 2 more times. So 2 single crochets in the next stitch. Whoops, there, 1 and 2. Get some more yarn. Okay, and then we're going to do 4 singles. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and then we're going to do 2 single crochets in the same stitch, and then 4 singles again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and now we're going to have 3 stitches left before we get to our marker, and in those 3 stitches we are going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2. Oops, there's the second one. And then 2 singles, so 1 in the next stitch and 1 in the last stitch. Okay, so that is the end of round 5. At the end of round 5, you should have 22 stitches around. Okay, going on to round 6, we're going to remove our marker, and we're going to put 2 single crochets into that first stitch. So there's the first one, and then I'm going to put my marker back. Okay, and then I need to do an additional one in that same stitch. Okay, and then we're going to do 5 singles. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're going to repeat that with 2 single crochets in the same stitch, and then 5 singles. 1, 2, oops, my hook split my yarn. Let me do that one again. 2, there you go. 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and then we're going to do that sequence again. 2 in the same stitch, and then 5 singles. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I have now 4 stitches left before I get to my marker. So it says, after doing those repetitions, it says to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 3 singles, and that will take up the last 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, that is the end of round 6, and at the end of round 6 you will have 26 stitches around. Okay, going on to round 7, we're going to remove our marker so we can put it back in after we make the first stitch. We're going to do 2 single crochets in the first stitch. So there's the first one, so I can put my marker in. Okay, and then I need to do 1 more in that same stitch. Okay, and then it says to do 6 singles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now we're going to repeat that sequence 2 more times. Okay, so 2 single crochets in the first stitch, and then 6 singles, which means 1 single crochet in the next 6 stitches. So do that twice, and then I will meet you when I finish my second repeat. Okay, so I just did my second repeat, and now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches left. We're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then we're going to do 4 singles or 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that will get us to the end of round 7. And at the end of round 7 you should have 30 stitches around. Okay, so we need to do 2 more rounds of increases, and then we will be done with the head. So let's go on. So in the round 8 we're going to do 2 single crochets. So let's put the first one in, and I'm going to put my marker back into that first stitch. Okay, and then I need to do 1 more stitch, 1 more single crochet into that same stitch. So there's 2 single crochets in that stitch, and then we need to do 7 singles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that 2 more times. Okay, so 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 7 singles, which is 1 single crochet in the next 7 stitches. And we're going to do that twice, and I will meet you when I get finished with my second repeat. Okay. Okay, so I just did my second repeat, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches left. I'm going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then I'm going to do 5 singles. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and that is the end of round 8. And at the end of round 8 you should have 34 stitches around this shape here. Going on to the last round of the head, we're going to remove the marker and start on row 9, and it says 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So here's the first one, and then I'm going to put my marker back, and then I'm going to do 1 more in that same stitch. Whoops. So 2 single crochets in that stitch, and then it says to do 8 singles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that sequence twice. So 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 8 singles, which is 8 single crochets in, 1 single crochet in each of the next 8 stitches. Okay, so I'm going to do my next 2 repeats, and then I will meet you when I get finished with them. Okay, so I just finished my second repeat. Let me get a little bit more yarn here. Okay, now we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches left. Do 2 single crochets into the next stitch, and then we're going to do 6 singles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so now we are finished with the head. It's kind of a interesting shape. It's not exactly round. It's kind of a squarish type shape. Okay, so it says we're going to fasten off with a slip stitch. So let's take the marker out, slip stitch into the next stitch, okay, to fasten off. And remember to leave a tail, because this is what we're going to use to sew it onto the center of our panel. So I just loosely go around the object that I'm going to be sewing in, and then kind of give me a little bit extra, and that's where I snip it off. Okay, so now my hook is still there after making the slip stitch. I'm just going to pull it all the way through to pull my yarn through. Okay, so let's set that aside for the moment, and let's do the ears. Okay, so continuing on with your main color, the color you're using, I'm using white. We are also going to start with a magic circle for this. And we are also going to do 6 single crochets into that magic circle. So I like to chain up 1 before I start, and then go ahead and start. So 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, pull my ring closed by pulling on the tail, and then going on to round 2. That was round 1, those 6 single crochets. Going on to round 2, it says 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 2 single crochets, which means 1 in each of the next 2 stitches, and I'm just saying 2 singles. But anyway, so inserting my hook into the first stitch of those 6 that I made. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is right there. Going into that, I'm going to do 2 single crochets into that stitch, 1 and 2 into the same stitch. And then it says 2 singles, which is 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat that. So 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and we should have 8 stitches going all the way around. Okay, going on to round 3, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then 3 singles, and we'll do that twice. So 2 single crochets in this first stitch, 1 and 2, and then 3 singles, so that'd be 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and we're going to do that, repeat that sequence again. So 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now we should have 10 stitches. Pull some more yarn out. We should have 10 stitches in going all the way around our little shape here. Okay. Going on to round 4 through 8, we're just going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around, okay? And if it's such a small shape, usually with small shapes like this, I don't really worry about putting and moving my marker. What I like to do, since there's rounds 4 through 8, that's 5 rounds, okay? 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, right? 5 rounds. And I know that each round has 10 stitches in it. So 5 times 10 is 50. So if I want to just start crocheting and count, I could just count 50 single crochets, and then that's the end of my shape, and I don't have to worry about moving the marker. And that's probably the way I'm going to do it. But if you want to continue to use the marker, that's no problem. Just do your first single crochet, put your marker into that first stitch, and then do 5 rounds, you know, where you're doing 10 stitches around, and then you will get the same result, okay? So I'm going to do my 5 rounds of 10 stitches just all the way around, okay? 5 rounds, and then I will be back to show you how I'm fastening it off, okay? Okay, so I just finished my 5 rounds of 10 stitches going around, and I'm going to slip stitch into my next stitch to fasten off, okay? And then I'm going to leave myself a tail, because we are going to have to sew these ears on as well. A little extra, because I'm going to sew the bottom of the ear together. So just pretty good sized tail there, okay? And then I'm going to just pull my yarn out all the way through and tighten it up there. This little tail from the beginning, I'm just going to poke that inside the ear there. Okay, now I like to I'm going to fold my ear flat, just push it flat. I'm not going to stuff the ear, and I like to fold it where the yarn tail is on one of the edges, okay, one of the ends or sides. Okay, and then to form our ear, I'm going to fold the bottom together, pinch it together, okay, to make our little ear shape. See that? Okay, and then I'm going to take this tail and I'm going to sew that pinch where I pinched it. I'm going to sew that together, okay? So taking my yarn needle, I'm going to yarn up my needle here and then pinch that ear together, okay? And then I'm just going to sew across through both thicknesses to sew that pinch together, okay? Just like that, okay? And then the rest of this I will use to sew onto the head, okay? So now go ahead and do that again, so then you can have 2 ears made, okay? And then when you have both of your ears made, then come back and we will sew on the face, okay? Okay, so now I'm ready to sew on the face. I'm going to use some of this pink yarn. In fact, it is the same pink that I used one of the other panels. And then I'm going to stitch on my nose, and I'm just kind of referring to the picture of how Patricia did hers. And so I'm going to insert my hook, I mean not my hook, my needle from the underside, and then come up, probably like between rounds 1 and 2 on my head here. Make sure you don't pull your yarn all the way through. And then I'm going to maybe skip 1 stitch and go across into this next stitch, okay, something like that. And then I'm going to just keep doing putting several stitches there through those same holes. I made myself a knot in the back. Okay, until I get the nose to look the way I want it to look. Okay, there's 3 strands. I think I want to put some more. Just going through those same holes. And there's 4. I'm going to do it some more. Five. Oh, what do you know? Let's put one more. 6. Okay, that looks pretty good. Pretty good size hole, nose. But you just, you do it however much you want. Maybe I'll do one more. Make sure this goes up across, around the top there. See if you put your thumb over it so that way it doesn't pull tight into it, and then just kind of push it toward the top part of the nose before it comes down. Kind of helps place it where you're wanting it. Okay. Okay, so that looks like a pretty good nose. And now I'm going to, with my needle, I'm going to come up right in the center. Try to get kind of in the center of where that nose is, but at the bottom, like right under the bottom edge, like that, to do that little split in the lip. Okay, and so I'm going to, referring to the picture here and to see how big her stitches are. Looks like she went down several stitches here. You can always lay it down to try to figure out how long you want that piece to be. I think I'm going to do maybe down here, if this is the round 1, round 2, maybe between round 2 and 3, way down there, and come up and you try to get it right centered right below the nose so that line will be sort of straight. Oops, I did it the wrong direction. I got to do it from the top. Okay. Okay, and that's just one thickness. You can go back through if you want another thickness, but I think just one stitch would be fine. And now I'm going to follow along that row right here to make my little smile on my rabbit, and on that same line, which would be between rounds 2 and 3, okay, and give him a nice smile. I kind of do a back stitch when I'm doing that. I'll show you. So I come up to from the back side to the front and make a stitch over, maybe one stitch, and then when I come back from the back to the front, I skip over, maybe a stitch and a half, and bring your needle up. And then I go back and I go down through that stitch. You want to try to link it together like it's more of a continual line. See that? And then I'm doing one more stitch, I think. Okay. And then of course you can go and make the smile up higher if you're wanting to have him to have a bigger smile. Just try to make it even on both sides. I think I'm gonna have to add some on the other side, the back on the other side again. Yeah. Oops. Okay, there you go. Okay, so there is my face. I think that looks good. Yeah. Okay, and so now I'm just going to, remember all this is going to be stuffed, so I don't really worry about trimming, my tail. I mean, as far as weaving tails ends, I'm just going to tie a knot to my beginning tail, and then trim them down short and just leave it at that. Okay, so that's all will be hidden in the stuffing. So there is my little mouth. I think that's turned out really cute. Okay, so to make the eyes, there isn't really any instructions in the pattern on how to sew the face on, or even how to put it on the panel. So just kind of do however you want to do eyes. I think what I'm going to do is, let's see, pull out a pretty good size of yarn. Now that I'm using black, and so now it's going to be difficult for you to see because I'm doing black on this black fabric. But once I'm working on the face, you should be able to see it. Okay, so let's see, where do we want to put the eyes? She looks like she started at maybe 2 rounds up from the nose. You can also, if you have some pins handy, you could stick some pins in to see if you like where the eyes are going, to get them even. I kind of like that. So that would be what, between rounds 1, 2, 3, 4. Be about on round 4, looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And then looks like I'm gonna have about 2, 3 stitches or so apart. You can just kind of decide where you want the eyes to be. Leave a tail there in the back. Okay. And then I'm going to go up a couple of rows maybe. And then I think I'm just kind of do some stitches there to make like a sort of a roundish shape. I don't know. Just start stitching. You just want to make sure it doesn't look like it's got angry eyes. Just kind of making kind of a square, rectangle-ish type shape, I guess. And see, you can put your, like I did with the nose, you can kind of put your thumb there to kind of get it where it doesn't pull tight until it gets close to it, and then use your thumb to kind of push it over to one side or the other for it to, so that way the yarn will lay where you're wanting it. Well, that looks pretty good. Okay, and then now I'm going to go ahead and stitch on my other eye. What I will probably do is go ahead, and when I'm finished this off, I think maybe I'll put another strand in there. When I finish this off, I will tie to the beginning tail a little knot and trim it, and then cut my yarn and then start again to do my next eye. Because this is white yarn, if I try to just go across from the underside to do the second eye, you'll probably be able to see that underneath that white yarn, and it won't look as clean. Oh yeah, I like that. When you're stuffing it, okay? So I'm going to fasten this off. I'm going to go ahead and just tie it, tie the ends together, the beginning tail. like in a double knot. Like that. And then clip it close to that, so then you hopefully don't see a lot of black strands underneath the where you're going to put the stuffing. Yeah, okay, like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the next eye the same way, and I will meet you when I am getting ready to sew the face onto the panel. Okay. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to sew my face onto my panel, okay? And just make sure you have your panel. It is a 5-sided figure, so make sure you have the point, the top point facing up, and a square side at the bottom, okay? And then just kind of center your face, your little rabbit face where you're wanting it. Just kind of center it over the center, the middle of the panel. I've already got my yarn, the strand coming off the head onto my yarn needle, and then I'm going to just start stitching through. One thing about stitching on something, you're only gonna see the front side, not the back side, so it doesn't really matter how sloppy you are sewing on the back side, okay? And just take some stitches around. You know, you don't have to go into every stitch. Maybe every other stitch or something, just depends on how you're liking it. Yeah, I would at least go into every other stitch. You may want to go back and go through every stitch depending on how your stuffing is behaving. Okay, so just start and you could pin it if you want to, but I think I'm just going to hold it in place. And every time I do a stitch or two, I will check to make sure that my my face is still in the center. And once I get maybe halfway or so around, then you can start lightly putting in some stuffing. Yeah, I think it's probably better if you go in every stitch, probably. I think I'm going to go, when I get down to the bottom of the face, then I will start putting some stuffing in there. Okay, I'm going to start putting some stuffing in. Just a little bit at a time. Okay, so just keep doing that. You don't want to stuff it too tight. Just kind of do it the way you like it, the way it looks good to you. Okay, I'm going to finish stitching this piece around, and when I get where I have just a few stitches left, I'll come back and show you how I finish it off, okay? Okay, so I have just a couple more stitches here, 2-3 stitches here looks like, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I want to add any more stuffing in there. I think I want to, so you can always use the end of your crochet hook to use as a poker to poke some more stuffing in there. Or your finger. Okay. Now I'm going to close it up. Okay, so there is our little rabbit face. Now we're going to get ready to stitch the ears on. So what I'm going to do now is just fasten off here at the back. And just run my tail through there. Okay, trim that off just a little bit. Okay, so there's our little face. Now let's go ahead and sew our our ears on. Now I do have some pins here that I'm going to use to kind of decide where I want to put them. Maybe right up from where the eyes are. Let's see. I'll stick a pin there to hold it steady. And then another one for the other ear. Okay. Somewhere around there. You can refer to the picture to see kind of where they're wanting to be. Then they are 3D, so looks like she didn't really sew them to the panel. I might do a stitch or two to the panel possibly, but you want to make sure that you have it sewn firmly to the head part, because you know, the baby may grab it by the ears. So I'm going to make sure we put that on securely. I went ahead and yarned my needle onto one of the ends for the ears, and I will start sewing into the head. After I make a few stitches, I should be able to take the pin out, get that out of my way. And then down into the head. Okay, now take that pin out. Okay, and then just secure it really well. Okay, so I'm going to keep sewing on the ear and then sew on my second ear, and then I'll come back to show you just a few closing remarks, and we'll be finished with this tutorial. Okay, so that is the end of part 2 of our tutorial for the educational baby ball. I hope you enjoyed making the little bunny, and I can't wait to see pictures of your progress. If you are on our Facebook group, Yarnjoy Podcast, please post pictures of your works in progress on this ball. I would love to see them. Okay guys, that's it for this time. Thanks guys for watching, and I will see you in the next part of the tutorial and in my next video. Bye guys.